Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Daniel bin Ibrahim, and today our group gonna present to you about skeletal and muscular system. In this video, you will learn about the functionality of skeleton and types of skeleton, which will be presented by Aziz. Next is the type of joint will be presented by me, Daniel. The next is organization of animal skeletal muscle will be presented by Burhanuddin, and lastly, sliding filament model, which will be presented by
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And hi, my name is Ahmad Azir Irfan bin Ahmad Saji, and today I am going to introduce to you guys about our case study and the study with the case study one, which is the introduction of the entire case study. So before that, I will introduce myself. I am 20216311144, and I am from RAS 1203B. So in this case study, we will learn more about the functionality and the types of the skeleton. So let's move to the introduction of the topic. From the main concept, so what are skeletons? Skeletons are the structural frame that supports the body of an animal, mammals, insects, and etc. This framework consists of many individual bones and cartilages, and they are consist of bands with fibrous connective tissues, which is ligaments, which are ligaments and tendons in the intimate relationship with the parts of the skeleton. And what are the skeletal systems? They are body central framework. They consist of bones and connective tissues, including cartilages, tendons, and ligaments. And it's also called musculoskeletal system. And they have three types of skeletal system. So let us move to the functionality of the skeletal system. So what are the functionality of them? They are body supports. They also consist of body movement, and also they are body protection. This system works as a support structure for the human body. It gives the body the shape of the body, and they make blood cells, especially red blood cells, provides protection for the organs and store minerals. The bones are also support any body weight to help stand and move. Joints, connective tissues, muscle work together to make the body parts mobile. And lastly, it is also the body protection, which they shield the brain, the ribs protect the heart and lungs, and the backbone protects your spine as well. So let us introduce more about the types of skeleton. The types of skeletons, they have three types, which are exoskeleton, endoskeleton, and hydrostatic. Exoskeletons serves as water impermeable barrier, protecting the insect against any desiccation, and the main part of the barrier is the wax covered epicuticle, which is the hard encasement that deposited on the surface of the animal, and the important function for the exoskeletons are barrier that prevent also microorganisms from access into the interior body of the animal. So the examples for this type are moths or lizards and so on. And let's move to the endoskeleton. Endoskeleton is a skeleton that found within the interior of the body. It provides structural support and protection for the internal organ and tissues of an organism. So this is then buried into the soft skin of an animal, and some of them are infused for the skin of mammals. For example, like us human, we are supported by the endoskeleton. So lastly, we have hydrostatics. Hydrostatics, or hydrostats for short, they are cavity-filled fluid of animal, and it's incompressible so that the organisms can use it, or you can apply force that been pressed or pushed with it, and control form of movement through their muscles and change the body shape.
bin Ibrahim, and today I want to present to you about classification of joint. First, introduction of joint. What is joint? Joint are connection between bones in the skeleton that allow movement. They come in different types based on their structure and function and determine the range and type of movement possible. For example, joints enable us to rotate our shoulder, bend our knees and elbow, and swivel our neck. Ligament attach bones to each other, while tendon connect muscle to bones. Classification of joint. Joint are categorized as structural or functional based on their features. Structural classification is determined by how bones connect, while functional classification is determined by joint movement. There is a close relationship between the two types of classification, as function largely relies on structure. Next is classification of joint. Joint classified into two types, which is functional and structural. Structural joint consists of three joints, which is fibrous joint, cartilaginous joint, and synovial joints. Fibrous joints is an immovable joint, also known as fixed joint, are found where bones are not able to move. The bones in this joint are fused permanently, often to form a structure. As an example is skull, upper jaw, ribcage, backbone, and pelvic bone. Cartilaginous joints are partly movable joints, comprised of symphysis or synchondrosis joint. These joints exist only in areas where the articulating bones are connected by cartilage. Synchondroses are short-lived cartilaginous joints found in young children and persist until the conclusion of adolescence. On the other hand, symphysis or secondary cartilaginous joints where bones connect are permanent. The most prevalent form of joint in the human body is the synovial joint due to its versatility in allowing for a wide array of movement, including walking, running, typing, and beyond. These joints are characterized by their flexibility, mobility, ability to glide over one another, and ability to rotate. Examples of synovial joints include the shoulder joint, neck joint, knee joint, and wrist joint. For functional joint, the first joint is ball and socket joint. The ball and socket joint provides the most extensive range of motion of any type of joint that can move. This joint enable movement in the forward and backward direction, as well as upward and downward movement, and it also facilitates circular rotation. The hip and shoulder are the only two joints in the human body that are ball and socket joint. Pivotal joint: the type of joint known as a pivot joint enables one bone to rotate around another, such as the joint between the first two vertebrae in the spine, allowing the head to turn from left to right and vice versa. An example of pivotal joint is the neck. Hinge joint provides movement that resembles the opening and closing of a door. The elbow serves as an illustrator of this type of joint, enabling the bending and straightening of the arm. Example of hinge joint is the ankle, elbow, and knee joint. Next is saddle joint. The saddle joint enables the movement of two different types. The, the joint between the first metacarpal bones in the hand and the carpal bone in the wrist is an example of a saddle joint. It enables the thumbs to move both away and toward the index finger, as well as toward the little finger across the palm. Next, condyloid joint. A condyloid joint is characterized by an oval head on one bone fitting into an elliptical cavity on another bone, allowing for movement in all directions except rotation around a central axis. Examples of condyloid joint include the joint between the radius in the forearm and the carpal bone in the wrist, as well as the joint at the base of the index finger. Lastly is gliding joint. A gliding joint allows for two bones to move smoothly over each other. This type of joint is commonly found in the ankle, connecting the tarsal, and in the wrist, connecting the carpal. The wrist gliding joint enables the hand to flex upward and move from side to side, while the lower.
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ibrahim Muhammad Afia, and I'll be explaining my case study on organization of animal skeletal muscle. Okay, an introduction to skeletal muscle. Each skeletal muscle is an organ that consists of various integrated tissues. These tissues included the skeletal muscle fibers, blood vessels, nerve fibers, and connective tissue. Each skeletal muscle has 3 levels of connective tissue that enclose it. These levels of connective tissue provide structure to the muscle as a whole, and also complementize the muscle fibers within the muscle into groups. This is the picture of a skeletal muscle of animals, and we will be going in detail. First one is epimysium. Epimysium is a fibrous tissue envelope that surrounds skeletal muscle. It is a layer of dense, irregular connective tissue which ensheathes the entire muscle and protects muscle from friction against other muscles and bones, the outermost layer of a muscle. Number 2 is paramysium. Paramysium is a continuous layer of collagenous connective tissue that separates the skeletal muscle tissue into muscle fascicles, meaning small bundles of muscle cells. As we can see here, a muscle is made out of many fascicles, and in each fascicles there are muscle fibers. Number 3 is endomysium. Endomysium, meaning within the muscle, is a wispy layer of roller connective tissue that ensheathes each individual muscle fiber or muscle cell. It also contains capillaries and nerves. It overlies the muscle fibers membrane, the sarcolemma. As you can see, on each muscle fiber, the endomysium completely surrounds the nucleus and the sarcolemma.
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Fauzan bin Abzaruddin from IAS 1203B, and today I would like to explain about sliding filament theory. What is sliding filament theory? In filament theory, it is a muscle contraction that occur through the relative of two set of filament. Those are microfibril and actin. In a very delicate and basic level, each muscle fiber is made up of a very smaller fiber that called myofibril. In that delicate and smaller structure of muscle fiber also have more delicate and more smaller structure that called actin and myosin filaments. This actin and this myosin filament is in and out together each others to doing a muscle contraction, and that's why this process called sliding filament theory. From the showing diagram above, and we can see a part of microfibule that called sarcoma. Sarcoma is the smallest of skeletal muscle that can be contracted. Sarcoma repeat themselves over and over along the length of the microfibule. Sliding filament muscle contain microfibule, myosin, sarcoma, actin, tropomyosin, and troponin. This one is microfibril. Microfibril is a cylindrical organelle running the length of the muscle fiber that containing actin and myosin filaments. Okay, for the second one is sarcoma. Sarcoma is the functional unit of a myofibril that divided into I bands and H bands. The third one, that the smallest filament in the myofibril, that is actin, a thin one, and a contractile protein in the filament containing active and binding sites. Okay, for the second smallest filament in myofibril, that is myosin, also same a contractile protein filaments, but different in thickness. Myosin more thick than actin, and protection known as myosin heads. Okay, for tropomyosin, it is an actin binding that's very useful in muscle contraction. Troponin is a complex of 3 proteins that attach